customer care in Trinidad and Tobago? Do we have any sort of thing like customer, service, customer care, where you can actually go into a business place and actually feel like you're getting your money's worth? I'm not going to blacklist everyone because there are many companies in Trinidad and Tobago that do this. And you do feel at home and you do feel like coming back, and you hear this like, oh my goodness, I can't believe you took care of me so well and all that. You hear all those comments. And then you hear the ones too, oh my goodness, I cannot believe I had to stand there for however long, stood at the counter, nobody took me on, and I am there. No, everybody's going their merry way and just not listening, not coming my way, not asking any questions. I'm calling people and they're watching me and they're going. So we've heard both ends of the spectrum. And we wonder, can there ever be, effective world-class customer care service in Trinidad and Tobago? I believe it's a possibility. And once all of us believe that, it can happen. But people, individuals, and organizations who can actually tell us some more about this in Trinidad and Tobago, and we probably need more of these as well, is Dawn Richards of DRA Consulting, which is Dawn Richards and Associates Consulting, the Chief Executive Officer. So good morning to you.
Thank you very much. Nice to be here.
Nice to have you. And also Ashanna Arthur, who is the Business Development Manager. Good morning to you as well.
Hi.
I see you've got a color scheme going on. Was that planned or is that...
Totally by accident.
Well, I'm not sure I believe that, but because she knew I was going to wear this color, and I have a sneaky suspicion that that may have informed her, her choice.
I'll tell you one thing, the way she answered, it seems suspect.
I know, right? I know. Just so happened we both happen to have on yellow today.
Oh, and I have some gold up here too, so look at that. Yeah. Anyway, Dawn Richards, good morning and welcome.
Thank you very much, Ria.
World-class customer care in Trinidad and Tobago.
Mm-hmm. We have no choice.
We don't, but will it happen? Will we do it? Can we do it?
I think it will, and I think we have no choice because one of the things that is happening is a disruption in the area of customer service. And the disruption is being led by customers because no longer are customers and consumers going to be tolerant of going and patronizing businesses where they're not getting value for money. I'm sure that you go, wherever you go, if you don't get value, you're probably going to blacklist the place and you're not going to go back. And that's a disruption that's happening. We have found that customer service has improved in Trinidad and Tobago. And it will probably continue to improve because no longer are products sort of flying off the shelves. Companies now need to ensure that service is built into the product. And the companies that are at the top of the food chain have realized that service is now the big revenue driver. And when you're able to brand your customer experience in a way that drives revenue, that drives competitiveness, that allows your company to be differentiated from the rest, because we're looking at very hyper-competitive markets. And we're also looking at a sea of sameness. In many business sectors, every company within those business sectors, every company is selling the same thing. So how do you differentiate? And if you want to be at the top of the food chain, you better make sure that service is part of the product.
Now you say that you've seen more and more companies becoming this way. But there's still so many that aren't, and many people will mention the public sector as well.
Yes,
so it's one thing tackling the private sector, but what about the public sector?
Well, I think that in the public sector, we need to have a philosophy of service. I think we need to have service being world-class service being the underlying corporate philosophy in every organization, whether that organization is public sector or it's private sector. So within the coming back to the public sector, there has to be some driving philosophy on the part of the government and the administration that says we are going to be committed to service delivery and world class. And there has to be some kind of program that allows that to happen across the entire public sector. And we don't differentiate between public and private sector. We're saying that we have consumers, we have nationals, we have citizens of the country who patronize both the public and the private sector. So there ought to be no differentiation in terms of the mindset that drives both of those business environments.
Now, Ashanna Arthur, how can one develop this in businesses, this customer caring that we seem to lack so much in Trinidad and Tobago?
Right. So at DRA Consulting, our signature product is actually a customer care intervention, which is a robust and immersive program where we actually go into companies and we shift their cultures to one that is customer centric. So sometimes what companies do is they do training for 1 day or 2 days. But many companies will find that after 1 day or 2 days of training, that habit or the new learning is not embedded. So that's why we have the intervention, which is a lot longer than your typical 1 day or 2 day training program. So it will be several months, depending on the company as well, because we tailor it to suit the company. And it's very immersive and there's several stages. So in that way, there's a lot of embedding of the new customer care habits that the company would want their staff to have.
Now, I'm thinking when you talk about this to organizations which will have larger staff,
Yes.
but I'm also thinking small businesses.
Right.
How do you target small businesses? Because sometimes, you go into small businesses and the customer service is really not
Right.
up to any sort of good standard.
Yes, and we've encountered with the different companies that they have different challenges. So smaller companies, I think, also have the desire to deliver that exceptional level of customer service, but they may be more restricted in terms of cash flow. They may be more restricted in terms of human resource capacity and how many people they have that they can actually dedicate to, maybe having someone who's just dedicated full-time to customer service. Yeah. So they have different restrictions. So whereas our customer care intervention is really for larger companies, medium to large companies, we actually do smaller programs that are for small businesses who also are attuned to the need to have world-class or high level of customer service within their company, but may not be able to do something as robust as that. So we have workshops. So we have 2 signature workshops that we do where smaller companies are able to send their people, whether it's 2, 3, or 5, or a small group, to do the workshop and to get some of that, to get an introduction to some of these skills that the staff need to have.
Ms. Richards, tell us some more about these workshops and how are they designed, when are they going to be taking place, and all of that. And how can one or organizations or companies get involved in it so they can really train their staff so that when we go somewhere we're greeted with a smile.
Well, I think we're going to probably have to wait for a few more years to see the critical mass taking over within the country. And the larger interventions are a little bit more lengthy, as Ashanna was saying. The smaller interventions, people can just call in, and we can just book the workshop. For the larger interventions, what we try to do is to get people to shift the psychological contract with the customer. For many of us, serving a customer is a painful experience for persons who are not customer-oriented. And that's a psychological contract. The shift has to be, it is now a privilege to serve, because, and we, all of our programs get the majority of persons who are in the classroom to understand that. So we have our own strategies and our tools and our teaching methodologies that help people to make that shift. And so once your mind is a little bit more open and you realize that customers don't come trained, that helps to get people a little bit more calm. And then we with some of the larger interventions, what we do is we help the organizations to come up with customer care standards that require everybody in the organization to commit to those standards. And when a customer comes in, it means then if every employee in the organization is committed to those standards, if they have the tools, if they have the skills, they've been well trained, and they have that customer service mentality, well, the customer care mentality, it means then that the customer is not getting an inconsistent experience. You're going to get a consistent experience. It doesn't matter if the company has several branches flung all over the country. When you walk in, you are you are getting a branded customer experience. And there's a big difference between customer service and customer care. Customer service can be good, poor, bad, anywhere in between. When an organization migrates to customer care, it means that all of the employees, 100% of the employees, deliver superior service 100% of the time to 100% of the customers. So it doesn't matter it doesn't matter which employee you interact with, it's going to be the same branded experience, because in customer care, there's no such thing as poor customer care as long as you migrate.
But is there such a thing as you say that every employee needs to be a certain way, needs to buy into what the organization is doing,
Yes.
needs to show those, developments and work with what the company has, say this is what we're going with. But are there some people who just cannot
Yes.
get there, that they're
Yes.
just not, they
Absolutely.
just do not have that personality for
Absolutely.
that? And
Absolutely. And companies should not force a fit, because number one, if, for example, when you're hiring new staff, first thing you look for is attitude. So you hire on attitude and then you train for skill. For companies that are already existent, who have a mix of of the employee base, as in those persons who are really not cut out for service, so those persons who ought not to be there in the first place, who have no interest in upgrading themselves to become that, then that's going to take a little longer. For those companies who have to now recruit and who are pretty committed to being service oriented, you need to start by recruiting persons who have a service orientation. And there are a number of challenge tests that you could do at point of recruitment that help you to be able to emerge whether or not this person is cut out for that or not, for service or not. And so the first thing is hire on service, on the service attitude, and then you can train for skill. The other thing I want to say is that an organization must first, and this is a note to the leadership in organizations, you must think of yourself as a 5-star organization. And when you think about yourself as a 5-star organization, you want to deliver 5 or 7-star service. And therefore, everything that you do is going to be mapped around whether or not the people are going to support this corporate philosophy that we are 5-star. The technology, the products, the business processes, because you can't claim to be customer-centric if your processes are not customer-friendly. So you have people, your employees are customer-friendly, your processes are customer-friendly, your products are customer-friendly, and your IT platform has to be customer-friendly, as in bringing the kind of information that is required to ensure that the customer experience is superior. It means that your ICT systems have to be so robust that they're able to bring information whenever it's needed, in the form in which it's needed, to the point at which it's needed, when it's needed.
This sounds like it's going to take a very long time before it gets any sort of headway in Trinidad and Tobago. Ashanna, so as a business development manager, your work is basically cut out for you within organizations and training.
Well, I think we have our work cut out for us, but in the last few years or so, I would say that there is a high amount of receptivity in terms of businesses being interested in what we're offering, because as we've discussed, they do, I think, even though we may not be seeing the outward manifestations of that exceptional service experience that we all want, I do feel as though it's in the managers and executives and CEOs, it's in their minds. But it's just bridging that gap between them knowing that that's where they need to go and actually deciding on the mechanism and how to get there and implementing it, which, as you said, takes time. So I do think we've seen a lot of receptivity in terms of companies being interested in how they can improve their service. But again, they have to think about all of the other challenges that come with having a business and running a business and being able to fit that in as well. So I think the desire is there. It's just for persons to really reach that critical point and move to actioning it and actually implementing programs and making the decisive step to implement these changes within their companies.
You know, as you talk, I'm thinking a company, foreign though, that I've had excellent customer care, customer service with, and I'll call it Apple.
Absolutely.
And you know, you read about the training that they have to go through before they're actually placed. Not even that, even the application, when they send in their application, so many people are turned away. And then those who are chosen, it's a rigid training that they need to go through before they're actually placed in any of the support centers or in the stores or anywhere. And really and truly, if anyone has interacted with anyone in Apple, even if you go to one of the outlets or if you call them online, the service is superior.
Amazing.
Yes.
Out of this world.
It is, and for, you know, a Trinidadian who's not accustomed to that, it's like, wow.
Yes.
You leave there feeling like you've got something done.
Yes.
With an experience.
Yes.
And one of the things is that one of the quotes we like to use is change before you have to. And what we see in many of these international organizations that take our breath away when it comes to service delivery is that they've invested a lot of invisible work, time and money into making sure that the front and the face of the organization is so sterling that we don't always realize just how much is done on the back end.
That's it.
Just to make sure that the front end is the kind of mind-blowing experience that allows people to be hooked. And so there's a little shifting away from customer loyalty to customer intentionality. So we talk about customer loyalty. So you know that your service provider does giveaways every Thursday. So very often you may go on a Thursday to get the giveaways. It doesn't necessarily mean that you are an intentional customer. The shift now is to making sure that when you get a customer, that the person is intentional. And as a customer, I can actually sit down and write reams and reams of paper identifying why I want to come and do business with your company. And so there's a little shift between, because we notice that there's a gap between loyalty and intentionality.
Yeah.
And when you speak with customers, if your customers can't really sit down and identify exactly what allows them to have this relational experience with you, then it means that you might only have loyal customers, because with every transaction, there are two ends of the transaction. There's the transactional end, where customers just want the product to do what it's supposed to do.
Yeah.
And then there is the relational end, which is the warm and fuzzy part, which is where we need to pay attention. Because if you've got a great product, but you don't have an experience that makes the person want to embrace that product, and you have competitors nipping at your heels, people are going to be leaving in droves, and they will not say goodbye.
Okay. So have you, I would assume that you've done training already with organizations in the country. About how many? Can you give us an idea of the numbers?
On the larger end, we tend to work with those organizations that are at the top of their chain. So they're about maybe 6 or 7 across the business sectors. So we do quite a bit of work in the financial services sector naturally, because it's a hyper-competitive market. And many of those institutions and businesses within the financial services sector, they actually feel it almost earlier than some of the other companies. Maybe in the hospitality sector, you're going to feel it as well. And so we do quite a bit of work in the financial services sector. We are doing a bit of work we do quite a bit of work within the hospitality sector as well, and the food sector.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in the food sector. So we
Which
have
are big.
we have a wonderful client within the food sector that is determined to make a difference with, because again, you're looking at food, you're looking at wellness, you're looking at health, you're looking at the fact that this is what people put into their bodies for nourishment. And that particular client has made some pretty radical strides in terms of implementing some initiatives that are designed to give people a wow experience. We're not totally there yet. There's still quite a long way to go, but the client has decided, you know something, even though we're not 100% there, we're still going to put an initiative in place that's going to let our customers know that this is our destination and that they should stick with us.
You know, you say food sector, and I just recalled Friday having to go to one of these food sectors, one of these fast foods, and standing at the cash, and the girl's like,
absolutely, absolutely.
and waiting for me to, and I'm like, and I'm thinking to myself, you ready for me?
Absolutely.
She hasn't said anything, and she's watching me. And then I'm like, good afternoon.
Right. Luckily, we're not. Luckily, our client is not in the fast food sector of the food retailing sector.
Off the hook there.
Yes, we're not in that end of the sector.
But how have you seen any changes in the organizations that you've been in? Have you seen a positive change taking place?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's not just us saying this, but one of the things that has to be put in for any organization that is serious about making a culture shift, because it's a shift in culture. It's not just a shift in behavior, because when you're adding a difference in mentality to difference in behavior, and you are saying to everybody in your company, we want our critical mass of employees, as in 80 to 90%, to behave this way, that's no longer a shift in just behavior. That's a shift in culture. Whenever that happens, whenever you do something on the back end or the invisible end, the only measure is the customer feedback. And the evidence has been there. And one of the big things that we like our clients to do is to track customer feedback and to welcome both negative as well as positive customer feedback. The positive is fine. The negative tells you where your gaps are and what else you need to do to convert those customers. Because very often, many of us run from the negative feedback. And really, you should be running toward the negative feedback and winning those customers over. Because the story is, when a customer has a great story to tell, it means then you are pretty much developing a customer advocate who's going to work hard on your behalf.
Yeah, because yes, the positive comments make you feel good, and it's like, yes, we're doing something right. But the negative ones help as well, because they help you think, okay, I need to change this, I need to do this differently. So we need to take both of them.
And when you do win that negative customer over, that person is happy to tell their story to anybody who's willing to listen.
Do you know that such and such happened at such and such place?
And that's how they say it.
Yeah, and I was so mad, but you know, so-and-so came and spoke with me.
It's called service recovery.
Exactly. Thank you very much.
Our pleasure.
We need it.
Anytime we're invited to spread the word that there's hope for service delivery, there is hope.
There is hope.
Thank you, Ria.
That just gives me so much hope this morning. You're so welcome. Dawn Richards, the Chief Executive Officer of DRA Consulting, and Ashanna Arthur, smiling across there, you know, just as you would expect, the Business Development Manager. Thank you both so very much.
Thank you for
Customer
having us.
service
Our pleasure.
care in Trinidad and Tobago. It's